So, ladies and gentlemen, we recently did a podcast on the great Mike McPhee, our star from Sydney, talking about winning the Cup in '86. But you can't talk about Mike McPhee without talking about his partner in crime, that jovial and great storyteller, Brian Skrudland. Now, Brian Norman Skrudland, born July 31st, 1963, came to Montreal as an undrafted player. He played for the Habs, the Calgary Flames, the Florida Panthers, New York Rangers, and Dallas Stars. Now, Skrudland first came to prominence with the Saskatoon Blades of the WHL. He played 3 seasons with the squad, and his best season with Saskatoon in the WHL was his last, with 94 points in 71 games, including 35 goals. Now, after signing with Montreal as a free agent, I don't know why he wasn't drafted. The Voyageurs of the AHL called. In his rookie season with Nova Scotia, he had 13 goals and 12 assists for 25 points, including additional 10 points in the playoffs. Now, with the '85 Calder Cup champion Sherbrooke Canadians, this is where it really paid off, ladies and gentlemen. His defensive-offensive style did much with Sherbrooke. He had 22 goals and 28 assists for 50 points in the regular season, and 9, 8, and 7 in 17 games in the playoffs. Now, he was called up to the big club in Montreal, where there was more than, well, you might say there was a dozen rookies that year. Some partial rookies, some second-year sophomores that didn't play much in '85 or very little. He had a regular season of 9 goals and 13 assists for 22 points, and his big production in the playoffs, he had 76 minutes in penalties, ladies and gentlemen, in the playoffs, so he was playing a role for sure. He only had 22 penalty minutes, 57 penalty minutes in the regular season. Now, his biggest goal in the playoffs, of course, is Game 2 in overtime, the fastest overtime goal in NHL history, where he got a feed from his line mate, Mike McPhee, and scored the goal that pretty much, secured Montreal's comeback against Calgary, because they had trailed 1-0 the series, trailed in Game 2, and he came all the way back. Now, he was also selected to go to the 1991 NHL All-Star Game, but could not attend due to injury. He was not there because of his offensive prowess. It's because he's one of the best defensive players in the league. Now, he was one of in kind of a compliment to him, he was asked to be in the Canada Cup team in '91, but was one of the final cuts. Now, getting back to the Calder Cup, he was MVP in the '85 NHL playoffs. Now, that talent for being a money player carried on to his career, not only with Montreal, but later on with Calgary. Now, Skrudland actually was traded to the Calgary Flames during their Montreal Stanley Cup season in 1992-93, which is kind of bizarre because you think a guy with Skrudland would play a big part, but he kind of outstayed his welcome in Montreal because there was a lot of players like Bellows and Muller and others that were getting the offensive load. Now, with Calgary that year, he had played 6 games in the playoffs, but he eventually ended up with the expansion of Florida Panthers. First season, he had 40 points, and he played 4 seasons with Florida, moved on to the Rangers and the Stars in '98, and finished his career in 2000, a little bit short of the 1,000-game mark in the regular season, but in the combined playoffs and regular season, he had well over 1,000 games. Final NHL totals: 124 goals, 219 assists for 343 points, with 1,107 minutes on penalties, and 15, 46, 61 in 164 playoff games, and he helped, of course, Florida get to the Stanley Cup finals in the mid '90s. Now, all we can say about him is the '99 Cup team that he was on with the Stars. He played 59 games with the Stars that year, and only had 7 points. Okay, but he was such a player on the bench, in the dressing room, on the ice. He motivated what I call, he had a lot of former Montreal Canadiens and elite stars were brought into Dallas. I don't think Dallas could ever win a Stanley Cup unless players like Skrudland was there. So again, 2 Stanley Cups within 13 years. You know, he one of the I think the longest droughts between Stanley Cups in Stanley Cup history by my memory. Now, Skrudland has accomplished a lot in his career. Now, he was also a finalist for the Selke Trophy in '94, which is given to the best defensive forward, and well-deserved recognition. Now, Skrudland currently lives in Calgary, and from July 6, 2010 until July 9th, 2015, he was the Director of Player Development for the Florida Panthers. He was also the AC for the Panthers during their 2014 season. So Brian Skrudland could go into any bar in Florida, in Montreal, in Calgary, in Dallas, wouldn't have to pay for a drink, because everybody needs a Brian Skrudland. Like we need a Mike McPhee. There's no friggin' way in the world that Montreal could have made those two cup finals between '86 and '89 were it not for Brian Skrudland. Dallas could have not made it to the finals were it not for Brian Skrudland. Same thing with Florida. So as the years go on, we're going to say who is not going to get in the Hall of Fame but has enough recognition by the Hockey Hall of Fame group. There's going to be a secondary Hall of Fame for the best defensive players of all time. You're never going to see it. But if you never know, I mean, crazier things have happened. Because you got to look at the Stanley Cups, you got to look at their production, look at their respect. And, you know, he's not going to make the Hall of Fame, but holy frig, over 1,000 NHL games, playoffs and regular season, you know, that's a career. 2 decades, ladies and gentlemen. 2 decades on the elite level, and plus the player development and coaching later on. And, you know, the Rob Ray incident, you know, when the guy went on the ice in Buffalo, you know, he stood in there and took, you know, 13 hard ones or 12 hard ones, whatever it is. Skrudland, I'd like to sit down with Ryan Skrudland for like 10 minutes and just pick his brain about, you know, tell me the story about that game, you know, game 2 in Calgary. Like, why did you think you could score? I mean, you know, you don't go to Brian Skrudland and say, you're going to score one of the biggest goals in Montreal Canadiens history. You know, this guy only had, ladies and gentlemen, up until that time, he had like only 10 major league goals. And he scores one of the biggest goals ever. You can't make up the shit. This is like, you know, somebody on the Yankees in '78 hitting a home run against, you know, the Red Sox, you know, that nobody thinks is going to hit a home run. Oh, I said Bucky fucking did, so my apologies there. Got to get him in sometimes. I haven't done the podcast in a while. So, have a good evening. Bye.